Good day, everyone. My name is Philile from Environmental Evaluation Unit at the University of Cape Town, and I'm here to present to you some of the work that I've been involved in for my master's called Enhancing Benefit to Small-Scale Fishers in the East Coast of South Africa. So basically, this research was part of a team in the University of Cape Town, where it was funded by Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association. And the research was done in South Africa and Mozambique. So we actually sampled small-scale fishing communities on the coast of those two countries. So I was involved in the South African component, and there was another master student involved in the Mozambican component of the project. So basically the objective of the project was to identify and explore the implementation of different benefit-sharing mechanisms and interventions in coastal communities. So basically we tried to determine whether communities benefit. Okay, so basically there are 5 sectors that we looked at. We looked at fishing, we looked at mining, we looked at conservation, agriculture and forestry along the coast. But in this presentation I'll only focus on fisheries and mining because it would take too long if I focus on everything. So we basically looked at benefit sharing mechanisms within these sectors to try and understand how benefits from these sectors are distributed in the coastal communities that I've been talking about. So the research was done in 2 provinces in South Africa, KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape. So in KwaZulu-Natal, we worked in 2 communities, so Kulu community and Bonambi community, which are adjacent to each other. And in the Eastern Cape, we worked in a community called Chani Mankosi, which is just north of Coffee Bay, just north of the Mthatha River as well. So the methodology that we used involved the grounded theory approach. So instead of us assuming how the communities are benefiting from these sectors, we actually adopted a grounded theory approach where we also took into account the perceptions of the community rather than what's out there in the literature and what the key informing people told us. So just to give you an idea of what's in these communities. So Kulu and Bonambi are actually small-scale fishing communities. But small-scale fishing is not the only activity that is taking place in this community. There's also mining by Richards Bay Minerals, commercial forestry by Sakubera Forestry and Mondi. There's also agriculture, which is mostly subsistence agriculture. There's conservation by SMVelo KZN Wildlife up there at Mapilane Nature Reserve. And they're also involved in regulating small-scale fishing as well. And then there's also tourism as well, there at Mapilane Nature Reserve. And also some recreational fishing that's happening in the coast of Bonambi. So the area that you see in the yellow are the mining concession areas by Richards Bay Minerals, and they are mining titanium from the sand. So in Makosi, in the Eastern Cape, other than fisheries, there's also sectors like tourism. Okay, so what's happening in these communities, especially in the whole of the former Transkei Coast, there's a lot of tourism that is attracted in these areas. So there's actually a backpacker facility and Anchorage Hotel, which actually promotes a lot of tourism in the area. And as a result, tourism plays a huge role in providing a market to fisheries in the community. There's also conservation, agriculture, and forestry as well. And the reason why I'm showing you all this is that for us, we realize that it's important, whether you're managing fisheries or you're you're a mining manager, you cannot manage these things in these rural communities without understanding the bigger picture, because everything fits into everything, and each sector affects other sectors as well. So we need to understand that from a holistic point of view. So just to give you an idea of what these communities look like. So all these communities are rural coastal communities, and the striking similarity in all 3 communities is that government child grants and pensions are the highest contributors to monthly household incomes in all these communities. And this is a trend that is prevalent in all rural communities in South Africa, that government grants are actually playing a huge role in supporting the livelihoods of the people in the communities. And in KwaZulu-Natal, there's also employment in mining, which is making minor contributions to household monthly income, as well as sale of crops from agriculture. And in the Eastern Cape, because fishers in the Eastern Cape are allowed to sell their catch, which is not the same in KwaZulu-Natal, they make a lot of money. Well, it's not a lot of money, but most of their income also comes from sale of marine resources and employment in the tourism sector as well. So just to give you an idea of the institutional arrangement for managing fisheries in KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape, the difference is that KwaZulu-Natal is the only province where fisheries management happened at a provincial level. So there's actually co-management by KZN Wildlife that is taking place in KwaZulu-Natal. In the other 3 coastal provinces in South Africa, there's centralized management of fisheries resources, which means that all decision making takes place in Cape Town, which is actually creates problem because there's no platform at the local level for government to understand the reality of fishes on the ground. Whilst with co-management in KwaZulu-Natal, KZN Wildlife formed committees consisting of themselves and fishers in the communities to co-manage the resources together. So as a result of those different arrangements, where in KwaZulu-Natal there's co-management and in the Eastern Cape there's no co-management, the kind of benefits that emanated out of the different arrangements differ. For example, with co-management arrangement, we all know that until after 1994, small-scale fishers in South Africa did not have legal access to the resources. But after 1994 and when co-management started, there was an improved relationship between the fishers and the authorities in the communities. And as a result, the communities perceive that the relationship with the authorities has improved, and there's also more ecological sustainability of the resources. And they also felt that they have a certain degree of decision-making power, which is not the same as in the Eastern Cape. However, in the Eastern Cape, the difference between KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape, like I mentioned, is that in the Eastern Cape, there's no sustainability focus. So fishers are allowed to sell, or actually not allowed to sell, but they're actually selling to the tourism market. And there's also a commercial buyer as well, which is licensed by DAF, who actually, they are stationed in Cape Town, but they come to the community to buy lobster at market prices from local fishers. So that also creates a market for local fishers when in KZN there's no market for fisheries. So the types of benefits that small-scale fishers get in the Eastern Cape are mostly monetary benefits, while in KwaZulu-Natal they are mostly ecological benefits. However, even though there's all this legal access that small-scale fishers have been getting since 1994, they still feel that it's not enough because the fishing regulations that come with the exemption permits that they use to access the resources don't recognize some of the resources that they have a history of harvesting. So these communities claim to have a history of harvesting a whole basket of resources. However, the resources that are stated in their permits do not necessarily reflect the resources that the communities say they have a history of harvesting. And as a result, they feel like they've lost out on that because for them, fishing is a livelihood. It's not just an activity. It's a livelihood and it's also a culture as well. So they've also, all the communities in KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape have identified all those types of losses from fishing regulations that are taking place. We also try to understand power dynamics in terms of who the communities felt has the most decision-making power in terms of how decisions are made about the use of resources. So in the Eastern Cape, we found that fishers are very terrified of governments. They felt that government makes all the decisions without the consulting the communities. The bubbles that you see here represents decision-making power. So the bigger the bubble, the bigger the decision-making power. And the smaller the bubble, the smaller the decision-making power. And the lines here represent the networks between the stakeholders that are involved in decision-making in the different provinces. In KwaZulu-Natal, although the fishers felt that because of co-management, there's some degree of decision-making power that the community committees have, they still felt that KZN Wildlife still has the final say in terms of the decisions that are being made. However, the difference between the two provinces is there's no platform for the communities to actually voice out some of their needs to government. So most of the decisions are actually parachuted from Cape Town into the communities in the Eastern Cape without actually understanding the realities of the communities on the ground and their needs. With the mining that's taking place by Richards Bay Minerals in Sokulo and Bonambi, basically at the local level, Richards Bay Minerals has the rights to mine the land adjacent to Sokulo and Bonambi. And because of the Mining Charter and the Minerals Act, they have to implement corporate social responsibility strategies and broad-based back economic strategies as well to benefit the communities. As a result of this, RBM has put into place these institutions at the local level to try and distribute benefits to the communities. So these institutions involve traditional authorities as well as other committees that were formed by RBM, by the people in the communities. However, what we found that there was a huge gap between what RBM claims to benefit the community and what the communities claim that they were getting. So if you ask RBM, they will tell you that they ticked all the boxes. And I mean, they've given the community some benefits. For example, in 2010, RBM gave 26% of the shares to the communities. So they actually paid 17.5 million rand endowments to the four mining communities, so Kulumbonambi and other two communities, which is Dube and Panazi. However, when you ask the communities in the ground, they will tell you that there are no such benefits. So it was clear that there was a gap between the benefits that RBM gives and who benefits. And what we found, this is what we found, that the losses from mining in terms of the wider communities like completely outweigh the benefits. So some benefits were there in terms of jobs and renovation of roads. But in terms of ecological losses, for example, Lake Ntlabane, which separates Sokulo and Bonambi, the water levels there have significantly dropped. And some of the fishers in Bonambi used to fish in Lake Ntlabane. But now, over the years, because of RBM mining, the fish stocks there are declining, and there's all sorts of kinds of ecological losses that the communities are experiencing, as well as other social and cultural losses. So this tells you that there's a gap that needs to be filled. And also the communities felt that Richards Bay Minerals don't really care about the community. And they actually refer to them as the beast, so they just do whatever they want. And they don't really, and the traditional authorities as well. I mean, for example, the traditional authorities, when I spoke to them, they told me that, well, because what's supposed to happen is they're supposed to consult with the community about what benefits they want to get from the money that RBM gives the community. But the traditional authority told me that, well, it's up to us to decide if we give the community or not, which is a huge problem. And even with Mapelane Nature Reserve as well, there's a money that comes out of the, because you know there's tourism in Mapelane Nature Reserve, so KZN Wildlife has to pay a community levy to Sokulu from the money that comes from tourism. But what happened was that the money ended up sitting in KZN Wildlife account because the traditional authority did not want to get the money, because KZN said you can only get this money in the form of a project and not in cash. And the traditional authority wanted cash. So they said, well, until you give us cash, we don't want that money. And the community was not benefiting because of that. So it's a huge problem that needs to be understood by all these stakeholders that are involved with these communities, that there are other social and political dynamics within these communities that cannot be overlooked if we try to benefit them. So even in terms of the institutions that are used in fisheries and mining, there were huge disparities, because in fisheries where there's co-management, especially in KwaZulu-Natal, and most of the members of the committees were actually chosen by community members. People in the communities felt that they were more representative of the communities and their needs. But in mining, there was very low perceptions of representativity by the mining committees, because there's a lot of nepotism that happens with the mining, because most of the people in the committees are actually related to the traditional authority and the councillor. So actually that's where all the benefits get stuck, and they don't trickle down as they're supposed to. So some of the key findings from the fisheries sector is that there are ecological, social, and economic benefits that emanate out of the sector, but economic benefits are valued more and more by small-scale fishing communities. And lack of decentralization of decision-making about resource access and use is a blockage. For example, in the Eastern Cape, even though the tourism sector provides a huge market for fishers, government does not allow tourists to buy from local fishers, and they don't allow tourism facilities to buy from small-scale fishers, which actually doesn't make sense, because these provide the largest market for fishers in these communities. So, which means that the communities are actually worse off because of these regulations. They don't take into account what's happening in the local context. And there's also a significant link between fisheries and tourism. So tourism, like in the Eastern Cape, can play a huge role in enhancing benefits to fishers. Decentralization of decision-making power, for example, like in co-management in KwaZulu-Natal, is important for promoting resource sustainability and equity. And collaboration between the state and communities in managing resources also facilitates the ability of the communities to benefit, like we've seen with co-management like KZN Wildlife. However, in the mining, even though Richards Bay Minerals has these corporate social responsibility strategies and these triple BEE strategies, there are blockages in terms of who gets the benefits and how benefits are distributed. And these blockages are caused by the lack of democratic processes for identifying the local structures that distribute benefits. So like I've told you before, there's a lot of nepotism that is taking place and political patronage as well. In Sokulo and Bonambi, there's a huge clash between IFP and the ANC. So if you are known to be ANC and the traditional authorities are IFP, then they refuse for you to get some of the benefits. I've seen that for example, with the mining money, some of it was used for bursaries for some of the matriculants in the communities. But when some of them who came from villages, they were known to be opposed to the political party that the traditional authorities affiliated to, they were denied those benefits because of the political parties they support. So there are all those kinds of political patronages and nepotism that is taking place that is actually inhibiting the ability of people to benefit. And there's also failure of Richards Bay Minerals to monitor the effectiveness of the local benefit sharing institutional arrangements that they put in place. So the key recommendations that we had was that institutions involved in fisheries and mining sectors influence how benefits and losses are distributed. So if these institutions are not well designed, even though they aim to benefit people, they will end up not benefiting the right people. Also, co-management is important in enhancing benefits to small-scale fishers, and partnership of institutions with communities also enhance benefits. However, the failure of local government to resolve the issue of dual governance in rural communities is a huge problem, because you have traditional authorities, you have local municipalities which are democratic structures, and then you have conservation authorities, and then you have the mining company, and you have the forestry people. All of them are working in the same communities, but none of them is speaking to anyone. So the conservation managers are just doing their job, the miners are just mining, the forestry guys are just doing forestry, and none of them is actually looking at these communities from a holistic point of view and seeing how they can work in an integrated manner to ensure that these communities benefit more. And what is happening with these communities is that there's also limited investment from government in terms of service delivery. So like, for example, there's no sanitation and poor infrastructure development. And as a result, these communities end up looking to KZN Wildlife and Richards Bay Minerals to provide these services when it's actually not their mandate. So what could happen is, if government could provide these benefits, the benefit that can come out of the mining can actually add on the existing benefit that the communities can get. So just to conclude, there's a new small-scale fisheries policy that has just recently come out, which basically aims to give small-scale fishers in South Africa long-term rights to benefits, because small-scale fishers have struggled a lot with food security and food sovereignty. This policy is one step closer to enhancing some of the benefits to small-scale fishers. However, the biggest challenge with the status of this policy now is how it's going to be implemented, because as you've seen in these case studies that I had, the context of each community matters. So you can't just parachute one policy to all small-scale fishing communities without understanding the context of each community. So that is the challenge that this policy is going to have to address if it's going to be implemented efficiently. Thank you very much.
Philile, unfortunately, we didn't have any more time. I can't take any questions. It's too short. Is there a question?
You said you can't take questions. Can I?
Yeah, 5 seconds.
Yes, 5 seconds.
Okay, Philile. I mean, we agree on the things around those, but what